Hi guys, welcome to the video. I am Cantillery and I have some huge 40k news to share with you guys. The long awaited big FAQ for 40k 8th edition has finally landed, and wow, is it going to change the face of the game. There are a number of new changes, including new beta rules, changes to mixed armies and detachments, how reserves work, and even a handful of points changes. Like, we knew this was coming. It's the big 40k FAQ, the first one of the year, and we were expecting big changes, but really not this big. So, first of all, the first thing they've covered is the existing beta rules that were being tested by the community for character targeting in shooting phase and smite, psychic focus. Those have now become official rules. They're no longer in beta. So the character targeting rule is as it was in the beta rule, no change. There is a slight change to the psychic focus rule, however. So Smite behaves as it did in the beta rule, except that squads of Grey Knights and Thousand Suns don't have to pay the tax on Smite per cast. So if you've got the Brotherhood of Psychers or the Brotherhood of Sorcerers rule, you're always still manifesting on a 5+ for Smite, regardless of how many other times it's been manifested or attempted to be manifested in that phase. So that's good news for Grey Knight and Thousand Sun players, as it means, one of the core fundamentals of their army hasn't been nerfed by the beta rule. So that's good. So with the pre-existing beta rules now being official, they're rolling out a new set of beta rules for us to try out as a community and see what people think of it. And they are huge. So the first one is tactical reserves. Now what this basically means is they've changed it so that any unit that arrives on the battlefield after deployment, so any tactical reserves you have showing up, if they enter the battlefield in game turn 1, they can only arrive inside your own deployment zone, which is massive. Like, that's game changing. So from game 2 onwards, they can appear anywhere on the battlefield over 9 inches away from enemies, or whatever the stipulations are of their own ability to appear. But basically, this is removing turn 1 Alpha Strike from the game, which is brilliant in my opinion, because actually it's gonna make it so that more people actually get to play games and feel like they're actually engaging with their opponent and not just being tabled straight away turn 1. It's like this affects both, combat orientated deep strikers and short range firepower ones, because you have to appear in your own deployment zone if you're going to show up turn 1. So even if you're a shooting deep strike unit, chances are you're going to be out of effective range. Now this does mean that you're still able to use this to protect your own units from getting shot at on turn 1. So if you want to use like Screaming Jets or some Ravagers, you can keep them off the table and have them drop in turn 1. But they're not going to be webway striking 9 inches away from you. You're not going to have Bloodletter Bombs appearing turn 1 9 inch away. You're not going to have battlesuit teams with fusion blasters appearing, really nearby or anything like that. They're still going to be able to behave as normal as they have done before from turn 2 onwards, so it's still very much a strong option to take deep striking units, but at least now it's not so strong that it's likely to just table the person who's going second, and then neither of you feel like you've played a game. So it's brilliant. Now, this doesn't affect units which effectively infiltrate, so anything which is set up after deployment but before the first turn starts, they follow all their own existing rules. So infiltrating like Alpha Legion units or Raven Guard, so anything which gets set up by a stratagem or a special rule before the first battle round, those can still be set up anywhere. So there's more strength now to taking infiltrators. Like, they're actually going to be your ways of tagging enemy units and screening units like straight away on turn 1. So it's a real shift in the dynamic of the game. Additionally, in order to curb this concept of alpha striking more, tactical reserves also means that whereas before you had to have 50% of your army on the table in unit count, that's still true. You still need to have 50% of your units deployed at the start of the game. But you also now need to have 50% of your total power level in your army starting on the table. Again, that's a huge change. Now, they have clarified that power level will include units embarked in transports, even though they're not technically on the battlefield. So basically, 50% of your power level needs to be on the table or in transports, and only up to 50% could be in reserves, waiting to arrive. This means that you can't get things like Tyranid players who are going to have 6 horrible monsters in Deep Strike and then 6 Ripper bases actually starting on the table. Because even though they've got 6 units on the table, they've not got 50% of their power level. So again, it's wow. It really is going to change the face of the games, this FAQ. But honestly, they feel like great changes. Like, it's going to bring games back more to games actually playing a match with an opponent, not just standing there and rolling to see who gets the first turn and who's going to win by clearing the opponent off straight away. So that's the first new beta rule. The second new beta rule is Battle Brothers. And this essentially is the death of Soup. This is Games Workshop's answer to the over-the-top mixed armies that have been dominating competitive play and which have been making army selection like, you know, the frontier, like the Wild West. Anyone can do anything. So basically, the Battle Brothers rule is it's a list of keywords that can no longer be used as your Battleforged keyword. So you're no longer allowed to use keywords Imperium, Chaos, Eldari, Ynnari, or Tyranids as your faction keyword, as your Battleforged keyword. So what this essentially means is you're no longer going to end up with Imperial Guardsmen fighting alongside Space Marines. What can happen is you can still end up with an Imperial Guard army that has Catchans fighting alongside Valhallans, because they can be unified under keyword Astra Militarum. But you can't be unified under keyword Imperium, so you're not going to be able to just pull in, like, you know, some Space Marine Devastators or even Gulliman just to join your guard. So basically, it stops people from just cherry-picking every powerful thing from across the entire Imperial range. It stops people cherry-picking everything from the entire Eldar range. Same for Chaos. You know, it's these like super competitive, abusive mixed armies are going to be a thing of the past, but you're still going to be able to play with fluffy narrative mixed armies. So, for example, while you can't use keyword Chaos to unify your Death Guard and your Nurgle Demons in one Battleforged army, all those units share keyword Nurgle, so you can still take Death Guard and Nurgle Demons in one Battleforged army. In like your Drukhari armies now, you can still take a Cabal, Cult and a Coven, because they'll all share keyword Drukhari, which is allowed. What you can't then do is just randomly throw in a Hemlock with them, because the Hemlock doesn't share any keyword, because it can no longer share keyword Eldari as your Battleforged option. So clearly this is Games Workshop's answer to should mixed armies exist. You know, yes, they wanted them to exist. They wanted you to be able to bring in and include, you know, like narrative allies and mixed detachments within one book, but the majority of Battleforged armies now will all be taken from one codex instead of being a complete mixed bag of units from all over the Imperium or all over the Craft Worlds. Interestingly, however, I believe this means that you can no longer mix Craft Worlds in one Battleforged army, as I don't believe they'd have any other keyword they would share, because they'd all have Craft World Ianden or Craft World Ulfway or whatever, but they don't have a unifying keyword anymore, so you can only have your one Craft World in a Battleforged Eldar army. And I believe the same is true for Tyranids, because you'll only be able to take a single Hive Fleet now, because they can't use keyword Tyranid to unify amongst your multiple detachments. Your unifying keyword would be your Hive Fleet keyword. So that's interesting. It's going to be unusual to see what people are actually going to be doing now, but in particular, it feels like a return to the more traditional way of playing Warhammer 40,000, which is you pick up your codex, you play with your codex. You can do pretty much loads of different things in that codex, but you're not going to be necessarily showing up now with an army made up of 6 different codexes for Imperium. Certain Imperial Agent units are still allowed to be allied in, so obviously in the case of things like Imperial Assassins, Sisters of Silence, the Legion of the Damned, these previously could only be included in forces by being unified under Imperium keyword. What the FAQ says is you're allowed to take Vanguard detachments of these factions without any HQ requirement. So you could just have a vanguard of Sisters of Silence squads. You could just have a vanguard of Assassins. So you're still able to include everything. There aren't any units that have been now made unusable by this change, which is good. So those are the two new beta rules. Now, as with the smite rule and the character targeting rule, these will pretty much be adopted by the community across the board straight away, and people are going to be testing them out and seeing what they think while playing their games to 40k. But personally, I think they're both brilliant rules. I think they're really going to change the game for the better, and I'm really looking forward to playing with them. And I imagine that's pretty much going to be the general consensus. So maybe in another 6 months' time, or whenever we get the next big FAQ, which I think is currently scheduled for September this year, these beta rules may become official, and we'll be looking at some new beta rules moving forwards. And I just want to say it's brilliant that Games Workshop is even doing this, that they're looking to evolve the game as it plays and change what's happening and really listen to the community. So I'm looking forward to the future of the game. It's going to be amazing. Then, some new rules that they're adding, just slight tweaks. They're changing the command points you get for building battalion and brigade detachments. So a battalion previously gave you +3 command points, it is now going to give you +5 command points, and a brigade previously gave you +9 command points, and it's now going to give you +12 command points when building your armies. So again, huge. More incentive in order to actually take troop-based armies and actually fill out those compulsory troop slots and turn up with, in more general terms, a more rounded force as opposed to showing up with Vanguard, Vanguard, Vanguard. Like, previously, if you showed up with 3 Vanguards, you actually got the same amount of command points as you did a battalion. Whereas now, you are paying a tax by not taking a core troop formation, a core troop detachment. So that's brilliant, because again, I think that's going to incentivize more people to actually take these rounded forces with, troop units, and not just be, 7 flying hive tyrants and some swarms. The other new rule they've added is a clarification about any ability that allows you to ignore wounds. So things such as Ulfway's, like Manipulators of Fate, or Nurgle's Disgusting Resilient. Anything that allows you to take a save after damage has been applied. Previously, through abilities, stratagems, traits, and other things, it was capable to stack multiple of these onto one model at times, or onto one unit. And basically, they've said no more of that. If for any reason a unit is capable of getting more than one post-damage save, they're only allowed to use one of them, whichever's best. So, small tweak, but it's interesting that they brought this straight in as, just a clarification. This isn't a beta rule or anything, this is official. So, if you've got a Death Guard guy with Disgusting Resilient and the Warlord trait of Ignore Wounds on a 6, he can only choose to use one of them, not both. So there's no 5 up followed by 6 up save after damage. He just gets his resilience roll and that's it. So that's a nice little extra thing, but also useful. Then there is a new and interesting suggestion from Games Workshop for organised play events. So previously, Games Workshop produced a suggested way of running organised events, which included limitations on points and game time, and in particular number of detachments. So most events these days have been running with a maximum of 3 detachments per army list, and again, while this isn't official match play rules, given that it's adopted by 90% of event organisers, it's also adopted by a lot of play groups as just a very standard way to play. Previously, 3 detachments max didn't have a overly huge impact, but was relevant to some armies and some builds. However, the new organised play suggestion is huge. So what Games Workshop is suggesting now is a 0 to 3 limit on any datasheets. You can't have more than 3 of anything in your army, unless it's a troops unit or a transport. So that means you can't have more than 3 units of Dark Reapers in your army. You can't have more than 3 flying hive tyrants in your army. It also means you can't have, say, more than 3 sets of heavy weapon teams in a guard army, and so on. So there's a few sort of weird little edge cases, but generally speaking, this is to prevent spam. So one of the other big things that was happening at tournaments was people were just identifying the best thing in a codex and just repeating it as many times as physically could in the points limit allowed. So this is brilliant. I love this change. Generally, I don't think most armies would have an issue with being limited to no more than 3 of anything. And certain stuff does workarounds anyway. Like, for example, Guard can still show up with, easily, I think 9 to about 12 even Russers if they want, because you can have them in squadrons. So you could have 3 squadrons of Russers, and then you could also have 3 tank commanders. There are still ways to get large numbers of things into lists if you want, but essentially it's going to stop the key spamming things. So, no more 10, 12 units of Dark Reapers or whatever, So another change which I'm looking forward to seeing how that affects people building army lists and how that actually changes the game. I think it's going to be really fun. This, however, is just an organised play suggestion, so whilst not official match play rules, it is going to be adopted by a lot of people as a standard way to play, myself included, and the rest of our play group. So we're looking forward to using it, and it's going to bring more diversity into the game, which is great. And then the last sort of main things to mention was there was a few points updates, as with chapter approved. So effective as of April this year, Robot Gulliman is now up to 400 points. Winged Hive Tyrants have gone up 20 points to 190 points base, and Dark Reapers are up 9 points each, meaning they all weigh in at 36 points per model. So there are a handful of other changes, including I think Commissars have dropped to 15 points now as opposed to 30, because the summary execution rule is nowhere near as good as it used to be. But those are the main ones of interest. Again, clearly targeted changes in order to prevent the spam or the overpowered things that were happening at tournaments and competitive play, but shouldn't be too impactful on casual. And finally, they have looked at a few little stratagems and psychic powers and stuff and tweaked things. The main tweak being that they've made Tide of Traitors a 1 use per battle. So bringing back cultist units constantly was proving too strong, and they've decided you should only be able to do it once. And that's about everything, guys. There are a handful of other small changes to some units and special rules, but the FAQ is available to download now over on the Games Workshop website if you want to go check them out for yourself. It's obvious this latest FAQ is going to really shake things up, and I think the game is going to be much better for it. But I'm interested to hear what you guys think. Do you agree with the new changes? What are your thoughts on the new beta rules? Leave your comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. Also, if you do enjoy 40k and love the hobby, you should definitely check out our Vox Chatter podcast. Every other week we discuss the game, share some laughs, and have a great time enjoying the hobby together, and we'd love it if you joined us. Simply click the link on screen now. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel for more 40k content like this, or alternatively, if you like video games, why not check out my Let's Plays and other gaming videos. You might just find something else you enjoy over on my channel. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.